Good evening, folks. Thank you for joining us. We are going to give attendees a few moments to continue to sign on to tonight's webinar. But in the meantime, a quick reminder that tonight's session is being recorded. Throughout tonight's session, please feel free to utilize the question and answer feature located at the bottom of your screen. You can feel free to ask questions at any point, as we have staff on the back end who will be taking questions throughout tonight's session, as well as we will be hosting a live Q&A with our panelists towards the end of tonight's webinar. We just please ask that you do not share any personal information in the Q&A, and you may want to submit questions anonymously as well, as that option is available. And we will address as many questions as we can this evening. Again, please feel free to use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your screen at any point during tonight's session. Again, good evening, good afternoon, good morning to all of our attendees. Thank you for joining us for this Trying Family Web Series session, Home Away from Home again. We are so excited to be able to host this session with our great partners from all around campus to speak on the important housing resources both on and off campus, as well as how to navigate the housing process legally. My name is Dan Perez. I am the Assistant Director for the Office of Parent and Family Programs. And I'm going to be joined by a great collection of folks to speak on how students can navigate the continuing housing process, how students can navigate the off-campus selection process and how the university supports them, and how students and families can avoid not only scams, pitfalls, challenges, obstacles, but also be successful in legally navigating the process of signing leases and getting housing off campus. I know we have a lot of material to cover, so I'm going to step aside and I'm going to introduce Malia Mahi, who's the Associate Director for Housing Administration, to get us rolling.
Thanks so much, Dan. Again, we just want to welcome everybody. I understand we have people from all over the world here joining us tonight here in San Diego, but it could be early in the morning, afternoon where you are tuning in. And we want to thank you for joining us this evening so that we can share with you some campus housing options that are available to our students. And I wanted to go through the housing guarantee. So this is back again. We had it a little while ago, and it's on the heels of our opening of 8th College, which will be opening fall of 2023. The university is going to offer a 2-year undergraduate on-campus housing guarantee for incoming students for fall of 2023. It also applies to those students that entered as new incoming students, either as first years or transfers last year for fall of 2022. So let's talk a little bit more about what can make you eligible for that housing guarantee. For the guarantee, it is super important that you maintain knowledge and awareness of deadlines. That does affect your housing guarantee eligibility. So part of being eligible means that you are submitting all documents, including housing applications, housing contracts, prepayments on time within the deadline. We just completed the housing application process that closed on February 22nd. And so the next steps for those of you going through room selection as continuing students will be contracting. That does start tomorrow, so March 1st. It will continue through March 8th. And so it is important to make sure that you go ahead and sign that contract, as well as submit your $450 prepayment to secure your housing. It is a hard deadline. So again, just please make sure that you submit your contract by 11:59 p.m. on March 8th. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Dan will have a resource document that will be circulated to all registrants, and that's a way that you can reach us. You can also find our email here in my name. It's housingcontracts@ucsd.edu. In addition, eligibility for housing also means that you are currently an enrolled student, that you also do not have an outstanding student account balance, and that you are in compliance with all university imposed deadlines. Additionally, part of the guarantee also requires that you did live on campus with us for the full term of your contract for this year. So even though we're mid-year about to complete winter quarter and go into spring quarter, technically you would need to complete that full term to be eligible for that housing guarantee. If for some reason you did miss the original room selection housing application process, you can always contact us at housingcontracts@ucsd.edu. Or we're also now in the student services portal through the ServiceNow process. You can contact us and we can look into your situation. We are tracking any students that originally missed this application deadline, and we can talk a little bit about what that option is if either you missed the deadline or maybe at the time you weren't interested in continuing with housing. So the option that we have available currently for continuing students, that means you're here with us currently and you'll be continuing with us next year. We do have the opportunity to open up our fall wait list, and that's going to begin on April 3rd. This is a lot earlier than we've done in the past. We typically don't open that wait list until July. So specifically for our continuing students, that wait list is opening early. We just want to make sure that you're aware that you can be assigned to any open undergraduate space on campus, and that you are responsible to ensure that your information is accurate and complete to make sure that you get that offer. The waitlist offers are also based on available space. So for example, if you notate that you only want a single and there's no singles available, you wouldn't be made an offer for a space. We also expect to provide weekly updates. So it's important to keep an eye on that waitlist page, and that will also be a part of the reference document that Dan will circulate. We also want to note that just submitting an application for the waitlist does not guarantee a space on campus. So we do recommend that you have a backup plan, and good news, Dan is going to explain to you a little bit later what off-campus housing options look like, just in case we don't have enough inventory for everyone on the wait list. This is another important page, a little bit small for me here as a presenter, but for those of you going through room selection, again, I would recommend bookmarking this website. This is the deadlines and details. So as I mentioned before, February 15th through the 22nd, where eligible students had the opportunity to submit their housing application. Starting tomorrow, all of those that did submit their housing application, we will be issuing housing contracts. And currently you're just getting issued a contract per space. There won't be any specific spaces, what type of room you're getting or where. That's not part of the contracting process. Right now, you're just contracting for a space on campus. Beginning on March 2nd through the 15th, once you have completed the housing contract process and also the $450 prepayment, you actually can opt in for some of our exceptional living learning communities, iHouse, or also the gender inclusive housing. And that is available at most of our facilities. Just a note for gender inclusive housing, we do not take gender into account for assigning spaces. On March 28th, those of you who are accepted into the living learning community or iHouse, you do have the opportunity to opt out if you're no longer interested in participating. And then the exciting part starts around April 13th, when you're going to get your room selection lottery date and time, as well as the roommate group pin for roommate selection sign up, which is available in the portal. And another exciting time frame is when you get to pick your spaces. So that'll be April 14th through the 27th. We do have a little time in between for those of you who maybe didn't have a chance to pick a space or weren't that concerned about a space, where we will assign spaces to you, and you have time to make adjustments to your dining plan through May 5th. It's important, although we don't have confirmation yet of our housing dining package rates, those will be available as of tomorrow online, so you can also take a look at what those rates will be. Next slide. And then for our housing dining plan options, what we really enjoy about our housing area is that we have a flexible a la carte system. So students get the power to decide when, where, and what they'd like to eat and drink from what facility. There's over 15 places to choose from. It can be something like a quick stop for a latte from one of our baristas, a hearty dinner after a long study session. And again, those are available from our multiple markets and dining facilities. The dining plan rates are also been confirmed, so we will put those on the website as well as soon as tomorrow. And we just want to remind everybody that in your current contract that you'll sign for 2023 to 2024, we are still offering the dining rollover option, and those funds will be available through December 14th of 2024. As a note, as you're going through the contracting process, you will have to opt into a dining plan. So at the time, you will have to pick one. And then once you get selected into a space or assigned a space, you will have the opportunity to change your plan for locations such as the Village at Pepper Canyon East or the Rita Atkinson residences. And that will be detailed again in that deadlines and details section and available the last day of room selection. Just a couple of notes about the dining package. Everything is packaged together, so it is along with your housing as well. You can also choose payment plans that you prefer, so you can pay in full, monthly, or quarterly. We do recommend if you're receiving any financial aid that you do select quarterly, just to line up your installment plan payments with any funding that you receive. And the great convenience of the dining plan that it is connected to your student campus ID card. And if for whatever reason, if you lose that, you can also access your plan using the Train to Go mobile app. Also exciting, we wanted to make sure that students and supporters are aware that we are offering, as usual, our summer housing options, and those are pretty much the same. We are offering our Accelerate program that's designed for current residents living in housing, meaning they're still here during spring quarter, who will be enrolled in UC San Diego summer sessions. We also offer the traditional, and that is for new incoming freshmen and new incoming transfer students, as well as new incoming international students and UC continuing students that are not currently on campus. We also offer this to visiting students who are enrolled in UC San Diego summer session, and they would be housed as well in the summer traditional summer housing program. It is required to be enrolled in summer sessions in order to be eligible for campus housing. Additionally, we wanted to welcome back our Summer Success program into summer housing. And so this year, the Summer Success programs that will be offered will be Summer Bridge, Summer Engineering Institute, and PATH Arts and Humanities. Summer Bridge will take place between the dates of August 5th through August 9th. The Summer Engineering Institute will be August 5th through the 9th, as well as the PATH Arts and Humanities, and that is also August 5th through the 9th. We will have information available on the summer website in March, and the application is expected to go live on April 17th of this year. I just want to thank everybody. If you have any questions, obviously we have our Q&A that we'll be doing later, but thank you so much.
Thanks, Malia. All right, I will be representing the Basic Needs Hub today in presenting their information regarding off-campus housing. So some of the information that they've sent over for us to cover includes the off-campus housing website, property search platform recommendations, roommate searching platforms, and also tips and strategies they have when it comes to selecting your own roommate, first-time running information, and additional resources. So first off, there is an off-campus housing for UCSD. Students can use it by logging in with their UC San Diego user ID, their PID number, and this allows them to look at offerings that are around utilizing this website. This is the best place that we recommend students to utilize first when searching for off-campus housing. Again, because it verifies the users that are accessing, and it's not just random from the public. On the off-campus housing website, it's UC San Diego managed property listings. The login credentials, again, are required for all users. The majority of listings are close to campus, and that has also expanded to be close to the trolley line. The UC San Diego blue line for the San Diego trolley system has really expanded the ability for students to live not just within the La Jolla area or walking distance to campus, but also in other areas of San Diego, because transportation through that provided MTS pass that is included for every student is more accessible. Also on the off-campus housing website, it includes resources that are helpful about rental readiness and, again, tips and strategies for finding off-campus housing. Again, part of the housing website includes the fact that students can create their own roommate profiles, as well as browse those other profiles of students looking for roommates. And students can include important information relating to their preferences or roommate characteristics. Things like that are, I think, a morning person or night owl, the type of programs they're studying, if they have private transportation like a car, or where it comes to lifestyles that they're looking to avoid as well, such as like smoking, if that's the thing. I know it used to be when I was in college, it's not so much anymore, but different, again, characteristics and preferences that they can browse through those different roommate profiles. Some of the platforms that the Basic Needs Hub and the off-campus housing coordinators recommend are PadMapper. This is a public property search platform, so it's not managed by UC San Diego. However, this is a popular one that is recommended by the Basic Needs Hub. It has properties all throughout San Diego County. It allows you to search for low budget options. And again, it has roommate information along with all the property information. It's one of the main reasons why they recommend using, this is on Spareform. So PadMapper is the one that's all throughout San Diego County. SpareRoom is the same one, but this one includes roommate information as well. So these are two different ones. So SpareRoom includes the roommate information along with property information. So these are for properties that already have folks that are leasing these places and looking to fill those rental units. So you'll see lots of UC San Diego students using this, even though it is not managed by UC San Diego. Some of the roommate searching tips that the Basic Needs Hub has provided is to have important conversations with potential roommates before moving in. So really discussing the ins and outs of renting, like the share of rent, when payments are due, what the lease terms specifically are, and what the length of the lease is. I think for a lot of students living off campus for the first time, navigating lengths of leases can be really challenging because there are so many different types, be it from a year-to-year lease to a month-to-month lease, a 6-month lease. Would also incur that students are no longer just signing up for a housing situation that lasts as long as the academic year. So many leases will be on a year-to-year basis. So that means that school will be over. So if students plan to do something over the summer, they need to take that into account when navigating what type of off-campus housing situation they're looking for. Also discussing culture and identity considerations, household preferences, like I mentioned before, are all really important conversations that students should be having with their potential roommates. And I say this, and I know the Basic Needs Hub has said this before, this even comes down to when you plan to live with maybe acquaintances or friends that you may have known beforehand. It's still good to have these conversations with people you already know in order to kind of put everything on the table and be able to agree to a housing and living situation before signing a lease. Some more roommate searching tips that they provide is, especially now as we are still battling with the COVID-19 pandemic, some folks have different, I would say, preferences when it comes to how they treat the handling of COVID-19 and their comfort levels with activities, gatherings, or following local guidelines. And it's always encouraged to be honest in conversations. When you're having a roommate discussion up front, it's better to be honest at the beginning than let something go on and then have to come to having a difficult conversation after you've been living together, after your student's been living with someone, and that leases have already been signed and the move-in has already happened. Again, it's easier to change your student's mind on living together before it actually happens than when there's already a legal document in hand that's been signed and that you're on the hook for a bit of time. And we know that La Jolla is a competitive market. And so when it comes to renting in this competitive market, it's being realistic about the budget, understanding that rent is only part of what off-campus housing will cost, that there's utilities, other living expenses, also travel as well. That it may include parking on campus, because it may be your student may be commuting for the first time, or it could be having to pay for parking, or a garage maybe where they live, or understanding that gas is now going to be factored into what it actually costs to live off campus as well if your student is driving to campus. Sometimes the Basic Needs Hub will also recommend that if the budget is fluctuating for a student, that they look for short-term leases, depending on what that budget may look like currently versus a few months down the road. And I've seen a couple of questions already from family members in the chat that have asked about when should students start looking for housing. It's always recommended to really start a few months before, even though rentals really won't come up unless it's about a month or two outside of that. But it's really good to understand what the market looks like, what areas seem to be popular for availabilities, and to really put down realistic expectations of where your student may want to live. And also to understand that some housing searches may be completed quickly and others may take a lot longer. Sometimes it's luck of the draw with off-campus housing. A very desirable place may come on the market and be gone the next day, and you may be able to get in on that desired location. So it really is being diligent and putting in the effort to continually look and stay on top of what that ever-changing housing market is looking like off campus. Also, considering areas outside of La Jolla. Now, I already mentioned that the trolley line has really expanded the campus's accessibility to the greater San Diego area. So not only are there areas in south of campus, like University City, Pacific Beach, or east of campus, like Claremont or Mira Mesa, but the trolley line has really opened up places such as downtown San Diego, Mission Valley, towards central San Diego, and even as far east as like La Mesa, where students can find affordable housing that are close to trolley lines. The blue line really opens up San Diego to as far south as San Isidro at the border and as far east as Santee. So it really brings this public transit availability so that students aren't confined to trying to find a place so close to campus. Again, some of the metro areas, like I mentioned, Hillcrest, City Heights, and the SDSU College area are also available along the public transportation system as well, not just the trolley, but the bus system. And like I mentioned, the blue line does go as far south as San Isidro. So even living in South San Diego is a possibility on being able to get to campus utilizing that trolley system. And for first-time renters, it's important to schedule tours. Lots of opportunities for virtual tours now through not just leasing properties, but also independent landlords. Using the reverse image search is always a good idea to ensure that you are avoiding rental scams. So to ensure that there aren't fake postings posted online that are just reusing stock images of other places and that the place actually exists. Because if the same place shows up on different listings in San Diego, it's going to be fake. And it's really important to be very wary of scams because unfortunately, it's a realistic possibility that lots of the housing ads you may see aren't actually for an actual place. It's also good to understand that properties will often require 2.5 times the monthly income in comparison to the rent amount. And so for full-time students, it's really difficult to prove what income looks like. So co-signing is usually something that is required for students to live off campus, which scams, co-signing, all those things that I've just mentioned are really heavy into the legal area, which our expert from Student Legal Services, John Carlos, will cover here in just a moment. So just to understand that your student needs to read through all the documents before signing any leases, that they may want to share those leases with you all to be able to review them together. And again, to consider plenty of options because San Diego is a competitive market, but the ability of public transit, it really expanding the accessibility of the campus opens it up to lots more possibilities for students at UC San Diego to live not just within this close La Jolla area. Again, this PowerPoint deck is going to be sent out to all registrants tomorrow, along with the recording of this presentation, and it will include all of the resources that all of our panelists speak about tonight. Here are some additional resources from the Basic Needs Hub that they offer. That includes consultation, be it for housing or not. They also offer a personal hygiene program. They have a basic needs lift program. So for students in need, on an emergency basis, they can provide free rideshare. There is a temporary housing protocol for those that fall on hard times and are in need of emergency housing assistance, maybe due to a multitude of different reasons. They can connect with the Basic Needs Hub for that. And then there's their HUDs International Corporation, which is again a housing website to assist international students. And finally, if you would like to learn more about the Basic Needs Hub and the off-campus housing coordination, you can reach out to them at basicneeds@ucsd.edu or visit their website. Okay, that's enough of me. I'm going to ask Giancarlo Signor to join us, who is the Director of the Student Legal Services here at UC San Diego.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm trying to start my video, although I'm not having any success with that. I hope y'all can hear me. My name is Giancarlo Senior. Oh, here we go. I'm an attorney, thank you, and I'm the director at Student Legal Services on campus. So my office provides free, confidential counseling, education, and referrals to all currently registered UCSD students. So in other words, as long as you have students who are enrolled, they can contact our office and talk to, make an appointment to speak to an attorney about any and all legal questions, issues, or problems. The single biggest sort of subject that we get questions about at Student Legal Services is housing and tenants' rights and reviewing leases and how to protect security deposits. And so I'm really happy to be part of this conversation and to talk about just a few renting tips that if I may suggest them. So next slide, if you would, please. Okay, yes, watch out for scams is number one. And unfortunately, it happens every year that students will lose thousands and thousands of dollars sending money for a fake place. So I always suggest, among other things, if you can, if there's any way to come here, review the look at the property, or have somebody that you know and trust look at a property before you send a security deposit or any deposit, I would absolutely encourage that. It's good to Google the address. It's even good to Google the name of the landlord or the owner to find out if they have any sort of history. There are even ways, there's a website called Parcel Quest where you can actually look up ownership information about properties. A couple, sort of things to sort of be on the lookout for are, Dan mentioned previously, pictures used over and over again, and so it's good to sort of do a reverse image search to see if the photograph is used elsewhere. If it's too good to be true, of course, and so you need to be careful if something is really cheap and is next to campus and has an ocean view and that sort of a thing. Chances are it's a scam. If you do a Google search and you find a place, if you find the address but it doesn't have, say, a unit number, and you find out that it's an apartment complex, that's sort of a way. It's a sort of tip off that I've seen in scams previously, where to list an address. Anytime anybody's saying I'm going to go out of town, I'm on sabbatical, I need someone to take care of my house. Certainly the alarms go off for me when I see that. So please be really careful and rely on off-campus housing.ucsd.edu to try to make sure that you're looking to legitimate housing off campus. So that's number one. Number two, keep in mind that all tenants or roommates are jointly and severally liable. That's a fancy legal way of saying in legal terms that every person who signs on to a lease is agreeing to be financially responsible for the entirety of the lease. And so, sure, if there are, say, roommates who are agreeing to pay certain shares, it's important to document that. But keep in mind that even in a situation like that, if your student, pays their share of the monthly rent, but their roommate doesn't pay their share, the landlord is entitled to not only take legal action against the roommate who didn't pay their share, but against everybody. And it's another thing to consider when it comes to co-signers and guarantors. So whenever I talk to parents, I always want to say, do everything you can to protect yourself if you're going to agree to be a co-signer. As Dan mentioned previously, it's a pretty common request for landlords to have co-signers, a parent or guardian to sign on. And by way of this joint and several liability rule, that means that one parent or whoever is acting as a co-signer is agreeing to be financially responsible for everybody. And so there are ways to try to prove income in terms of for tenants trying to prove that they are going to be able to pay the rent. So I, among other things, recommend that if you have students living on campus right now who are going to move off campus, have them talk to their residence life office and try to get basically a letter of reference saying that, yes, this student pays the rent. Go to financial aid, get a financial aid statement. You could even, if the landlord is agreeable to it, write a note saying, hey, I'm going to agree to help pay the rent for my student. Anything short of actually co-signing to me is preferable. Also, I'd suggest that in that regard, consider having your student use a roommate agreement, which you can find on our website at sls.ucsd.edu. A roommate agreement sort of just lays out what the deal is in terms of the roommates, and it's customizable, so you can add names and how much each person is paying and who's going to put what utilities in whose name. And any other information that you want. And I think it's really important, at the very least, as a conversation piece with folks, particularly folks who haven't lived together previously, so that they get a sense that that of course they're committing to this contractual relationship. So number 3, I highly recommend renter's insurance. So renter's insurance, some landlords will require it, some do not. I would say regardless, I would highly recommend that if you can afford it, to get renter's insurance. So most renter's insurance includes, number 1, personal property coverage. So it's a set amount of money, $10,000, $20,000, $25,000 that will cover a tenant's personal property in case of loss, theft, or damage. And so that amount, of course, can be changed, and that will modify, of course, the premium cost. And it's really important to remember that in terms of in case of loss, theft, or damage, it's going to be really important to prove ownership. So I always recommend, when it comes to the big ticket items like computers, like phones, like bicycles, that folks keep copies of the bills, the receipts, or the invoices from those purchases. At the very least, take pictures of those things. So that in the event of loss, theft, or damage, you can prove that you own them and be reimbursed. So in addition to personal property coverage, there's typically also liability coverage, and basically that covers the tenants as well as the landlord. And in the event that there's an injury, say, on the property, and so both of those are pretty standard. You can also, though, get additional coverage, say, for plumbing floods, and I recommend that you get the absolute best renter's insurance that you can afford, so that it includes that situation. Unfortunately, it comes up every year, and the base coverage that some landlords suggest doesn't include this. So I'd say shop around if you can. Also, loss of use coverage, and that's basically coverage in the event that there is, say, a flood or some sort of thing that makes a place uninhabitable for a period of time. If you have loss of use coverage, that will cover basically alternative accommodations, whether it's an Airbnb or a hotel temporarily, say while fixes are being done to the unit. A lot of insurance policies, renters insurance, don't include this. So I would say absolutely try to get loss of use coverage. I'd also suggest if you are a parent or guardian who owns their own home, talk to your insurance to find out if there are any options for your student. And of course, if students have car insurance policies, it's good to check to see if the insurance company that issues that policy, if they bundle, in other words, offer auto as well as renters insurance and other types of insurance. Absolutely get the best insurance you can get. As again, some landlords may require it, but unfortunately, I've run across plenty of situations where the required renters insurance, the one required by the landlord, still doesn't cover, a particular issue. So get the best you can. Next slide, please. Number 4, protect your security deposit. If I could talk to every student living off campus, this would be the one thing I would tell them: protect your security deposit. So take lots of pictures. Have your student take lots of pictures when they move in and when they move out. Video is also good. Anything, emailing pictures to yourself. We even recommend printing out pictures if you can, and keeping copies of the pictures, so that in the event there's a dispute about the security deposit, your student has proof of the condition of the place upon move out and upon move in. So take lots of pictures. Number 1. Number 2, complete an inspection checklist. You can find one on our homepage. A lot of landlords will provide an inspection checklist, so that that will be filled out by the tenants when they move in. And it's also really important for students, for tenants when they're moving in, to complete an inspection checklist, so that they don't get charged with any damage that's already existing at the place. Another sort of thing to look out for is that a lot of leases require that even though there's a fixed end date to the lease, say March 1st, the lease, the language of the lease will say that you have to give at least 30 days prior written notice before the end of the lease, or the lease automatically turns into a month-to-month lease. So that what that means is that the deadline to notify that is going to be at the end of January. And so you want to circle on your calendar at least 30 days before the lease ends, just to know that that's the deadline to give notice to the landlord. That the tenants intend not to renew the lease and intend to terminate the lease. So the law also talks about a pre-move out inspection, and I know I'm talking about way far in the future, but it's really important for students to request a pre-move out inspection before they move out. It's protected by law, and it's a great way to protect security deposits. Of course, if there are repair requests, if there are any issues that need addressing by the landlord, by the leasing office, make sure to put those repair requests in writings. Keep any communications you have with writing, and email is sufficient. Text is okay, although I do prefer email, and I do prefer actual written documentation when it comes to more serious things. Lastly, I'll say that yes, folks are already starting to look to move off campus right now, or looking at touring places. It really picks up at the beginning of the spring quarter, so really in March. If your student is thinking about signing a lease, have them contact Student Legal Services, and one of our 2 attorneys, myself or the other attorney in the office, will be happy to go over the lease and answer any questions that your student might have. Now, I know that there are plenty of questions about on-campus housing. I'm going to hang out and try to answer any questions that come up, but at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it back to Dan. Thank you.
Thanks, John Carlos. And if I could have Malia and Aaron join us on screen too, so we can try and knock down as many of these questions as we can. So the first question I'm going to keep with you, John Carlos. We had a question about renters insurance. And the question from a parent was, if the landlord asked to be listed as additional insured, not additional interest, on the student's rental insurance policy, is that okay?
Very standard. It's very standard for a landlord to request that they be named as an additional insured, and that's totally fine.
And to follow with that, if one roommate has rental insurance, is that enough, or should all roommates get their own policy?
I would suggest that the roommates all together, if possible, get one policy to cover them. And typically that's, in my experience, at least, that's how renters insurance, that's how insurance companies work, is they will issue it to everybody. Now, of course, that's not always the case, but since we're talking about the rule of joint and several liability, and so again, my legal concerns are that, you know, anything done by one roommate can affect all the other roommates when it comes to obligations. So I say, hey, get the best insurance you can and get it for everyone.
Great, thank you. Okay, for our dining folks, again, I think Malia, you had mentioned this, but if a student does not use their dining dollars by the end of this academic year, how long do students have to utilize those dining dollars?
I can take that one, Aaron. For the 2023-2024 year, if they're under contract with, for this year, sorry, through December, through the end of fall quarter next year, basically is when it keeps rolling over. So if they end spring, they decide to go home, not attend summer session, when they come back in fall, they can use them through the end of fall quarter.
Additionally, we do have dining halls and markets that stay open during the summer. So if your student is here for summer sessions or just around campus, they can use their dining dollars through summer.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay, and thank you all for participating with our Q&A. We have answered over 170 questions throughout this session. The team on the back end is doing a fantastic job. So again, we're going to try and get to the most popular on air. So another popular question that we did see, sticking with the dining area, is, are dining and meal plans available for commuter students or students living off campus?
I can take. So currently we do not have an offering for commuter students for dining dollars. We do, however, accept all forms of payment, so credit cards. We also offer Triton Cash. So we have the Triton Cash office. You can load it in like dining dollars, but it'll be a prepaid on your same ID. Those are the two options that we have.
And we like to say for the Triton Cash team that there's no interest payment, so it's not like a credit card or anything like that. It's truly like a debit card. And then if a parent or supporter is set up as authorized payer, you can actually see what they're spending. So we like to say, you know, you're not going to get send your child money and then they come back with Nordstrom's shopping. They actually spend it on food. And I think we might be adding outback adventures, so maybe some kayaking or camping as well, but that's good for the soul too.
Good to know. To just close out, we did just receive a question. Is the cost of Triton Cash for food the same as dining dollars?
Yes. Yeah, it's just basically like putting money on a prepaid card, essentially.
Another popular question that I've seen, because room selection has been a very big topic tonight, is can students from different colleges request to live together?
Only if you're a transfer student. So transfer students, does it technically matter? You're usually going to be assigned to like Pepper Canyon or Rita. So they can, but if you're going to be a second year student and your friends in Muir and your Ravel, probably not possible. You would be assigned essentially with people from the same college.
Okay, thanks again. Here's a question which is close to my heart because I was an RA. Is my student applied for an RA position? Is there any information on when those offers will be available? And should my student still sign the housing contract if they're waiting to see if they are accepted as a resident advisor?
I'm gonna have to look that one up because I'm not overseeing the RA session. So it looks like offers will be announced week 10 of winter quarter, so just a few weeks away. Yes, and they still should sign that contract. If they become an RA, we'll make the adjustments for them.
Perfect.
And they'll get a refund if they're selected.
Great. That was the next question. Is folks are asking, is that housing deposit refundable?
It depends. So we do have, for anyone going through room selection, we do have the cancellation schedule, I'll say, depends on, so basically you make that $450 prepayment. If you go through room selection, but you decide, I'm not into any of these spaces, I don't want it, and you cancel at that point, you get the $450 back. But after that, it does depend on the date of cancellation, and it's kind of a declining balance. It goes from $450 to $350 to $250. It gets a little bit more expensive the longer you wait to cancel.
Great. Thanks, Malia. I know there's been a question about parking. I can take that to the best of my abilities. For students who will be living off campus and will have junior or senior level standings, their parking availability goes up. They can get a daily pass. For those students who are living on campus but are lower class, they would not be able to. So they would be able to purchase and they would have to file an application to receive a consecutive day SR permit. And students who are commuters who may be of lower class standing, so first years or sophomores, can file an application for exception with the transportation department here at UC San Diego to receive that consecutive day permit. So I'm going to share that link as well, because I know that parking can be a little complicated and it is dependent on what year your student is at UC San Diego. Will determine what availability for parking permits they may select. So we always recommend that students reach out to the Office of Transportation with any questions, because they're the experts in that matter and will be able to provide direct and specific details for each student. For Jean Carlos, we had a question about international students navigating leases when asked for proof of income or credit score. What resources are available to help avoid scams like those ads that will say that they will sign leases for international students because they don't have a credit score? How do international students navigate that process?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it is a very, very tricky one, particularly for international students who are not able to come and check out a place. I know that the off-campus housing website, and you mentioned it in your portion of the presentation, the folks at off-campus housing recommend Hugs International, which to my knowledge is a private organization, although based locally, that can try to help students who are on F1 or other visas to prove their income. So that's one option I would suggest. And I would also basically just say contact the off-campus housing office when it comes to looking for housing and to try to and utilize their services as best as you can.
Yes, it's great. I know that unfortunately our international population tends to be targets of lots of different scams around housing because they can't be physically present here with signing leases. They don't have credit scores. Lots of things that the normal rental process goes through. So we recommend that they do reach out not only to the Basic Needs Hub, but also the International Students Programming Office to work with those counselors to get those resources and get in touch with folks that assist international students routinely around these challenges. So again, for our international students and their families, please ensure to reach out to the Basic Needs Hub and the International Students Programming Office to assist with your search for off-campus housing. Now, I know we've got plenty of more questions and I know we're running past time and I want to cover some of the resources before we move out. So again, I want to thank you, Malia, Aaron, and Jean Carlos for joining us. Folks, if your question did not get answered tonight, please email us at parents@ucsd.edu. We are going to answer all of your questions this week and also get them connected to our wonderful panelists and their office and resources to get you specific information if we were unable to do that tonight. But before we leave you, we do have a list of resources that have been mentioned, and I want to ensure that they're up on the screen. This PowerPoint deck will be sent out to everyone that registered along with the recording of tonight's session. I know we covered a ton of information, a ton of different websites, a ton of just everything that has to go into navigating on-campus and off-campus housing has been covered by not just myself, but our wonderful panelists and experts. So the resources on the screen will be shared again, so you don't have to worry about writing them down or bookmarking them as they've appeared in the chat tonight. Again, as I mentioned, tonight's session is being recorded. If you would like to watch it back, it's going to be posted on our YouTube channel tomorrow. If you would also like to watch it back or share it with a family member that would like to utilize translated subtitles, the YouTube platform provides automated translated subtitles, and you can do that by following the directions on the screen by clicking settings, subtitles, and auto translate, and then the preferred language. So in order to make this recording more accessible, YouTube will auto translate subtitles for this recording. Also, if you would like to get engaged with our office and the university, we are always accepting signups for our parent ambassador program. That's a way that we invite family members and parents of current undergraduate UC San Diego students to stay engaged with the university and engaged with our office, the Office of Parent and Family Programs. Again, thank you so much for attending this Trying Family Web Series session. We are not done with this year's lineup of sessions. We have one more coming up, and that is Staying Well, the Importance of Your Students' Self-Wellness. This is in partnership with Counseling and Psychological Services. They will be presenting a webinar, not only discussing the resources that UC San Diego provides to support your students' self-wellness, but also they're going to be providing strategies and tips on how family members can also partake in supporting that wellness, so that the student doesn't have to continually seek out the resources or find somebody else, but if they do come to you, that there's strategies and tips that our staff here can provide you to kind of assist your student in maintaining and prioritizing their self-wellness, because we know that if they're not taking care of themselves, if they're not feeling well, that they can't be successful here and they can't be successful students. We want to ensure that we are providing full round of information and resources to provide students the best opportunity to succeed here at UC San Diego. Again, thank you to all the staff on the back end for answering over 200 questions off air and on air. Thank you, Malia, Aaron, and John Carlos for joining me on screen. And thank you all for attending this session in support of your student and in support of their housing needs and what's to come. Again, this recording will be available tomorrow. And if you have any questions, again, please email parents@ucst.edu. Again, we will answer as many as we can or get you connected with those experts and resources that can answer your question. Again, thank you so much. Have a good evening, morning, or rest of your day from wherever you are joining us. And we hope to see you soon. Thank you.